Hello YouTube, thank you for tuning into my channel. This is Azrael, and today we are going to be talking about pendulums and dowsing rods. Okay, now before we get started, I hinted in one of my other videos that there are pros and cons to each form of divination, and I was asked to elaborate. Well, a good example would be, well, pendulums and dowsing rods. Now, pendulums and dowsing rods out of default pretty much give you one of three answers: yes, no, or inconclusive. Okay? So if you're wanting a lot of detail, you would probably go to the tarot cards to give you more detail about a situation. The dowsing rods kind of give you a yes or no. So if you're going to use this form of divination to get a lot of detail, prepare to ask 1 in 100,000 questions. That's a perfect example of a pro and a con. Again, tarot gives more detail in certain situations, but these forms of divination, such as the pendulum, can give you a more quicker of a yes or no answer. You can get a yes and you can get a no with tarot cards, but that's a different fold. And again, with the pendulum, you can also do other things such as walk around the house or a yard or a big area and douse for things as you walk. Like, is there water? Is something that you can't necessarily do, flipping cards as you walk. Is there water? Is there water? Is this where the lost item is? Dowsing rods are great for finding water, when tarot cards are just good to flip and get information about the element of water. So basically, I guess you could say. So the pros and cons is that certain things give certain information easier in certain situations. Like I said, it's easier to walk around the house with a pendulum swinging for yes or no if you're looking for a negative energy that might be in the house or a lost item, as opposed to tarot cards. All right. If you're wanting some advice on life's bigger questions, you wouldn't use the pendulum because you'd have to literally ask thousands of questions. But I'll also show you a little cheat sheet that you can do with the pendulum and dowsing rod to make these more effective in certain situations. So here we go. Okay, the first time I bought a pendulum, well, the only time I bought a pendulum, was about 23 years ago. And here it is, my first pendulum, guys. Simple string onto an amethyst. It's camera doesn't pick up the deep purple for some reason, but it is an amethyst, and in this light, it is more purple than it looks. Okay, now I chose the amethyst because, well, this is one of the crystals I resonate most with, and I figured because what I'm doing with the pendulum, well, resonates with psychic phenomenon. This helps increase spiritual and psychic phenomenon. All right, up, come here. All right, up. You want to say hello? Say hello quickly. Come on, up, 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 up. All right, come on, up. Come on, say up. You want to come over here? One's no, I have a camera. The other one's shy. All right. All right. Anyways, so I thought that obviously this would help improve my my pendulum effectiveness. Again, this is a technique that you're going to have to practice. All right, you get better the more you do it. It's the best thing I could say. All right. Typically for me, going clockwise means yes, and going counterclockwise means no. Going back and forth or erratic, means maybe, or I need to ask a question when I collect my thoughts more. Okay. You don't have to buy a pendulum. You can make one simply by using a string attached to attach an object, which obviously will be weighted. However, it should be balanced. So in my opinion, if you're going to do this the cheap way by making your own pendulum, don't use a rock and glue it, because nobody's perfect. Unless you're a great craftsman, you could do this, but nobody's perfect. They might get it off center, and it will be hanging off the string like this, as opposed to like straight down. The best way is to use a ring or a bolt, or not a bolt, a little nut that goes to a bolt, little metal nut. Tie the string loosely around it, because if the ring has a heavy side or the bolt is not balanced, the heaviest part will find its way, being pulled by gravity. So if you're going to make a homemade pendulum using one that is circular on a string, gravity will naturally pull the heaviest part down, making it balanced automatically. All right. Now you can do things like this. Now the words on my screen look backwards. I don't know if it's going to correct itself, but and I have bad handwriting, guys, so sorry. So you have like a little crescent. Yes, says yes, no, maybe, ask later. You can add other responses, and then when you have the pendulum, you can hold it over it, and it'll swing in yes, no, maybe, ask later. You could also draw a diagram of your house or of your property if you're looking for water or a lost item. And when you hold it over the map of the area, it won't necessarily swing yes or no. It doesn't. I mean, it will ultimately, but when it swings like in a circular, you're going to feel a slight pull to move your hand. It's like the pendulum is weighing heavier when it swings a certain direction. It might feel heavier, and that's where you're wanting to follow it. So if it while it's swinging yes, for example, it says, oh, it seems heavier as it pulls when it goes to the right, so I'll move to the right and keep on moving it, and then eventually you're not going to feel that pull anymore, and it'll just be yes or no if you're in the right location. Okay, now it's pretty simple. It just takes a lot of practice. And again, starting out, even if you're an expert, always take the answer as a possibility, which is most likely right, but not an absolute, because things can change, or you could just be wrong. All right, moving on. Dowsing rods. Okay, dowsing rods, there's two kinds. Well, the L-shaped pieces of metal like this, and then the Y-shape, usually a twig. It's usually in art and historically it's been a Y-shaped twig, where they hold the Y like this, and when they walk, it'll vibrate and want to go point downwards for yes, or up for no. So that's how a lot of people would find water to build wells back in the olden days, was by dowsing. All right, very successful until we got computers and ultrasound to where we could take pictures of what's buried and we'll know for a fact. But the Y-shaped dowsing rods were used to find water, and very successfully back in the old days. So anyways, I don't use the Y shape. I use the L shape. Now, for me and for most people, if it's a yes answer, they'll cross for yes, and they'll kind of separate for no. Now, you can make these yourself real easy. I mean, super duper easy and cheap. I didn't go that route. I actually went to Lowe's and bought metal plumbing pipes. And they have little screws at the top, but it's hollow inside. Okay, and it's metal. I just like the feeling of metal. And they also sold different calibers of pieces of metal that were straight. And I bought one for like, I bought these for like $3-4 each. And this big long piece of wire, thick wire, for about like maybe $2. And I could make probably about 2 different divining rods. Now I like big long ones. Now I measured this roughly from the tip of my finger to my elbow, a little bit extra. So I like the longness. But if you're going to do it yourself, you could do it like this, measure it down to the elbow, and right about where the hand would bend, the wrist, you bend that to an L. And you just place them in here like this. Now, the cheap way, real cheap way to do it it's just getting a wire coat hanger, just like this, and a pair of wire cutters. And at the base of the hanger, you just cut it. And then when it comes up to where you'd put the shoulders of the shirt, you put your hands there. I don't have that, so I'm just telling you guys. And cut it. So you have, this would be the bottom of the hanger, and it would come up to where the shoulder would kind of bend inwards like this. You just place your hand there and then measure, and then you'll have a little L rod and just kind of bend it a little bit more straight. Do take yourself an old little cheap ass pin and quite literally, if you either you pull it out from the other end, pull out the inkwell to where you have a plastic hollow tube. Then you just put the coat hanger you just modified into the plastic tube, and you basically have homemade cheap dowsing rods. Okay, using a cheap pin and a coat hanger. And again, cross for positive answers like yes, separate for no. Now, I like these dowsing rods. I'll walk through the house, and when I find pockets of positive or negative energy, for example, they'll tell me, or again, yes or no. Okay, the dowsing rods, in my opinion, are easier to detect energy and to get yes or no answers from than the pendulum. I've just never been good at the pendulum. But using the same tricks, like with the plate and drawing a diagram or a diagram over the house, they work the same. Again, great for finding energy and some basic yes or no questions, but nothing in depth. Okay, so that's all covered, literally. So see you in the next video. Please like and subscribe. I do have a Patreon for wayward animals. So if you guys would like to check that out, that would be awesome. If not, that would be awesome too. Don't matter. Like and subscribe. Click that little bell. I've been noticing that a lot of people who have subscribed to me are saying that they haven't been being notified. And sometimes you have to literally click that bell or click it and unclick it again in a couple of days for some reason. But anyways, thank you. See you next video.